Okay, Erev Tov, good evening everyone. We are coming off, Baruch Hashem, we just had a dinner to celebrate the completion of the third parak of Masechet Berachot, and we are well in our way in the fourth parak. For those of you who missed the dinner, sorry, we missed you, but Baruch Hashem, you're still part of it, and Be'ezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll be able to celebrate the next Siyum with you in good health. Let's begin. We last week we spoke about in Masechet Berachot. We're talking about the tefillot, shacharit, mincha, and arvit. We're speaking about the zmanim, and the Mishnah tells us the end time for each of these prayers, and each of them are machloket. Gives us the end time of shacharit. Rabbi Yehuda omer ad arba shaot, and Chachamim Rabbanan omrim ad chatzot, either chatzot or 4 hours. Mincha is either ad ha'erev or ad plag mincha. And then arvit in la keva, and then musafin is either kol hayom or ad sheva shaot. We spoke about the times of each of these prayers. Now the Gemara gets into the machloket of when these prayers were established. So we have a morning prayer of shacharit, an afternoon prayer of mincha, and an arvit evening prayer of arvit. How are these established? So it's a machloket, two opinions. One opinion says tefillot keneged avot tiknum, they were established to correspond to the three fathers. So we have Abraham and Shacharit, Yitzchak is Mincha, Yaakov is Arvit. Three fathers, three prayers. And the other opinion says Keneged Timidin tiknum, they're corresponding to the communal offerings in the Beit HaMikdash, Korbanot. Which one is it? Were the tefillot established to correspond to the avot, the fathers, or were they established to correspond to the korbanot? So what the Gemara says is that let's try to find proofs. We have two braitot. One braita proves like the avot. The other braita proves like the korbanot. Last week we did the braita that proves like the avot, and we stopped there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go back just to give us a running start. We're going to do the braita that proves keneged avot. And now we're going to do also the braita that proves keneged korbanot. That's where we are. Okay, you're with me. So this is the machloket. We have three prayers. Chachamim established shacharit mincha arvit. They are giving us times in this Mishnah for shacharit mincha and arvit. Where did they come up with this from? Why did they pick three prayers? Why did they come up with these times? How did this come up? So that's what we're discussing. One opinion says keneged avot. The other one says keneged korbanot. We're going to pick up. I want to start from the beginning of this discussion. It's in Masechet Berachot daf kavav amud bet 26B 1. We'll start with the end, the end of the page of 26B 1, the paragraph that starts on the bottom left. I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. Let's go. Itmar, it was said. There's this discussion. Thank you. Yeah, good. Everyone, laugh for the just for that. No, don't point. Just laugh. Okay, here we go. Itmar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, Amar. Tefillot avot tiknum. The tefillot were established by the fathers, by Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, meaning Abraham established shacharit, etc. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi omer, tefillot keneged timidin tiknum. The tefillot were established by the rabbis, corresponding to the offerings in the Beit HaMikdash or the Mishkan, sacrifices. So the Gemara says, Tanya kavetei Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina. We have a braita that supports the view of Rabbi Yosef, who said keneged avot, corresponding to the fathers. V'tanya kavete, the Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and we have a braita that supports the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who says it's keneged korbanot. Okay, now we're going to do each one. We already did this one. Again, this is not going back to Gabriel's point from last week. It's not going to be ironclad proof, but what we're going to find is by each of the fathers, for each part of the day, there's a verb that's used. That Abraham was amad, and Yitzchak was suach, and Yaakov was paga. And each one is a different time of the day. Abraham did this in the morning, Yitzchak did this in the afternoon, and Yaakov did this in the evening. And each of those verbs, you find another pasuk somewhere in Tanakh that in the same line talks about prayer. So it connects each of these actions to prayer for each of the fathers in each of these times. Pretty remarkable how the Gemara does that. Let's go ahead and see that. Tanya kavetei Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina. We have the braita that's proving the opinion of Rabbi Yosef. And it says as following: Abraham tiken tefilat shacharit. Abraham established shacharit. Shneimar, as it says, vayashkem Abraham baboker. Abraham wakes up in the morning, so we know we're talking about morning time. El makom asher amad sham, and he went to the place that he stood. Now that verb stood means to stand, but it also is juxtaposed to another verb, ve'en amida ela tefillah. And when it says standing, here it's referring to tefillah, prayer. Shneemar, as the pasuk says by Pinchas, ve'amod Pinchas ve'falel. It says Pinchas stood and prayed. So you have this word standing with Pinchas is what you do when you stand. Is what you do when you pray. You stand. Amida. So Abraham was Omed. So he prayed at Shacharit. Next, Yitzchak tiken tefilat mincha. Yitzchak established the prayer of the afternoon. Shenemar, Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh. Yitzchak went out into the field to meditate or to speak, to converse. He went out in the middle of the day to do something. Lifnot Arev, as it was approaching the evening, which means in the late afternoon, toward the evening. And this word of suach ve'en sicha ela tefillah, that word siach is referring to tefillah. Shneimar, as the pasuk says in Tehillim, tefillah le'ani chiyatof. There's a prayer that a poor person says when he wraps himself, and pours out his siach, his conversation in front of God. This is the tefillah. Once again, so you see Yitzchak went in the afternoon and he was suach, and you see in the pasuk that an ani who is praying is sicha. Same thing, and that's toward the evening, in the afternoon. Finally, Yaakov tiken tefilat arvit. Yaakov established the prayer of arvit. She'emar, it says when he's having the dreams as he's leaving the land of Canaan, going to Haran, it's in the evening time. It says he reaches the place and he sleeps there. Reaches, paga, means to encounter. He encounters the place and sleeps there. This word paga is used in another pasuk that has to do with tefillah. Ve'en pegia ela tefillah. And pegia is referring to tefillah. Shneimar, ve'ata atitpaleh ba'adam hazeh. And you don't pray for these people. Va'atisa ba'adam. Don't defend them. Rina utfilah. Don't defend them through prayer, through tefillah. Ve'ativ gabi. And don't encounter me. So you see here that this verb of encountering is said in the context of don't pray, don't encounter me. So you see there's a context of it. Again, this doesn't mean that that the word paga in the pasuk means tefillah, but you see the word pegiyah is used in another pasuk in the context of tefillah, and Yaakov is doing it in the evening. And so you have Abraham established shacharit, Yitzchak established mincha, Yaakov established arvit. That's the first proof. So now let's get to the proof of the Braita that tells us, like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that the tefillot were established keneged korbanot. Mipnei ma amru tefilat shacharat chatzot. Why is the latest time to pray shacharit until midday? Oh, this is very relevant for our Mishnah. This Braita is very relevant. Why did you come up with this midday time that you can't pray shacharit after midday? Simple. Sharet tamid shel shachar karev ve'olech at chatzot. Because the korban of shacharit in the morning, the korban tamid of the morning, can be brought until chatzot. That's why shacharit, the prayer is until chatzot, because the korban of the shacharit is brought until chatzot. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad arba shaot. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is the shacharit can only be prayed until the 4th hour. Sharet tamid shel shachar karev ve'olech at arba shaot. Because he holds that the korban of shacharit can only be brought until the 4th hour. So that means by korbanot of shacharit, there's a machloket. Until what time can it be brought? Chachamim say chatzot, midday. Rabbi Yehuda says until the 4th hour. What about tefillah? Same thing. Shacharit can be prayed by Rabbanan until chatzot, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, until the 4th hour. Why? Because of the korbanot. No, we're not taking Shabbat. We're talking about the tefillah of shacharit. We're talking about Amidah here. When we talk about tefillah in this parak, really we're talking about the Amidah prayer, the Shemona Esrei. It's not talking about the Shema Yisrael. Yeah. There's a machlok, there's a korban that we bring every morning. It's takeves echad taseh baboker, v'takeves hashini taseh ben arbaim. There's a communal tamid offering that's brought every morning. What is the latest time that could be brought? Machloket. Rabbanan say chatzot. Rabbi Yehuda says 4 hours. Okay. What about shacharit? Same thing. The amidah of shacharit. Rabbanan say until chatzot. Rabbi Yehuda says until 4 hours. The Braita tells us Why is shacharit only until chatzot? Because they hold that it's going to be the same as korbanot. And why, according to Yehuda, until the end of the 4th hour? Because that's what he holds by korbanot, and it's the same thing. The Berachot is very clearly telling us that the times of the tefillah are corresponding to the times of the korbanot. It's telling us that, and it's not just a coincidence. It's telling us that's the reason. Yeah. So when does the Kohanim do it? It's a good question. It's a very good question. How is it possible that they're arguing about what the korbanot could be brought? Most likely, the Kohanim, these guys over here, these Kohanim would take care of it in the first 5 minutes. As soon as the sun rises, they're doing it. So they don't even get close to the end time. They're not. This wasn't a issue. We didn't really have that so much because there's a concept by Kohanim. It's called Kohanim Zrizin. Very good, Rama. Kohanim are Zrizin. They do things very quickly. The Beit HaMikdash opens up. They have work to do. They bring the korban. They're not waiting until the 4th hour. That's not, they do it right away, which is likely why you could have this. But there's a machloket. But the Berachot is not finished. Because guess what? Why did Chachamim say that the prayer of Mincha is allowed to be prayed until the evening? Because the korban of the afternoon can be brought until the evening. It's the same time. Oh, but Rabbi Yehuda argued, right? Rabbi Yehuda says it's only until the time of Plaga Mincha. You know why? Because that's the time that you could bring the Mincha offering, the korban. It's very clear. They have a machloket by what time that the afternoon korban is allowed to be brought. Those times are brought onto the times of the Mincha prayer. And then, and why did they say that the time of Arvit, it doesn't have a set time, which means it goes the whole night? Because any fats and limbs that haven't been burned by the evening time, the Kohanim are allowed to burn it all night long. So since these fats and limbs are allowed to be burned all night long, you're allowed to pray Arvit all night long. And we keep going. And why do they say that the tefillah of Musaf is all day long? You know why? Because the time of the Korban Musaf is all day long. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer at Sheva Shaot. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda says Musaf is only until the end of the 7th hour. You know why? Sharei Korban Musaf Karev veholech at Sheva Shaot. Because the Korban Musaf was brought until the 7th hour. End of the proof. Okay, actually, we still have a little bit more. Yeah. Correct. It's telling you, yes, that's right. You're saying that the times of the prayers correspond to the tefillot of the korbanot. Very good. The point is here is that there's a machloket amoraim as to what is this made corresponding to. Now, the proof that we brought about the avot also isn't not a ironclad proof. It shows a pasuk where Abraham prayed in the morning. It shows a pasuk where Yitzchak prayed in the afternoon. It shows a pasuk where Yaakov prayed in the evening. That doesn't mean they established it. But then, what was it established by? The korbanot? There were no korbanot at that time. Maybe it wasn't established. Maybe they were just doing their own thing. It's possible. But you see that correspondence. It's a strong proof that that's what it is. That's your, what do you call it? That's your precedent. And here, the Braita is tying the times of tefillah to the times of the korbanot. Does that mean that's why? No, but it like aligns one to one. There's a machloket by the korban of shacharit, and there's a machloket by the tefillah of shacharit. There's a machloket by the tefillah of mincha. There's a machloket by the korban of mincha and tefillah of mincha. By musaf. It's lining up one to one, and that's a pretty strong indication that when they established the times of tefillah, they did it to establish to the korbanot. Maybe that's because these prayers were established to correspond to the korbanot. You're right. Okay, but we're not done with the proof. Okay, let's keep going. Now, the Braita continues, and it's important because do you remember what Plag HaMincha was. Anyone remember what Plag HaMincha was? Hour and a quarter before sunset. Very good. Okay. So we spoke about this last time. The day is always split up into 12 hours. Andrew brought us a Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, I believe, that says that the day is 12 hours. Now it happens to be that some days have more daylight and some days have less daylight. For example, today sunrise was around 5:40 and sunset was about 8:20, I think. I may be making these numbers up, but whatever it is, you really have like 15 hours of daylight. You have almost 15 hours of daylight, not 12. So what you do is you have 12 hours, and each one is going to be 75 minutes long. This concept is called Shaot Zmaniot, seasonal hours. You see how much time you have from sunrise to sunset. You chop that up into 12 slices, and each of those is 1 hour. Now, Plag HaMincha, we're going to say, is that Plag HaMincha is that the later time of Mincha, there's going to be two we're going to see, the later time of Mincha is 2.5 hours before sunset. So if this is the start, so 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, when you get to 9.5 hours, no, 10.5 hours, when you get to 10.5 hours, you're at the line of Mincha Ketana. And Plag HaMincha is going to be in between. So now the Gemara is going to talk about that, okay? The Ezohi Mincha Gedola. When is the time of Mincha Gedola? So we're going to define that there's two times. One is called Mincha Gedola. One is called Mincha Ketana. What is the time of Mincha Gedola? Mishesh Shaot Umechatza Ulamala. From 6.5 hours and on. So that means the time of Mincha Gedola is what times? From 6.5 hours. Say that in another way. Okay, very good. Another way of saying that? If you go from an even day from 6 to 6, what time? Yeah, afternoon. Yeah, it's quite literally afternoon. It's 12:30. If you're going on a day that's from 6 to 6, it's a half hour after Chatzot, because you're 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours, it's a half hour after midday. So it's half hour after noon, right? Okay. This right now, this is a time that's being defined. It's a point that's being defined for us. It's not a prayer. It's not a prayer. No, it's not a prayer. It's defining a moment for us, and that moment will be called Mincha Gedolah on the calendar and on the schedule. And that point is going to be 6.5 hours of the day. That's what the Berachot is telling us. When is Mincha Ketana, the small Mincha, mitesha shaot umechza ulamala. From 9.5 hours, I said 10.5. It's 9.5 hours and on. That marker is called Mincha Ketana. So do I have 1 second? Okay, so very good. This discussion is relevant because of Plag HaMincha. Okay, let me pull this up. Torah. I have Gemara Berachot of Eli's chats. Sorry, I would have pulled this up beforehand, but I was eating poppers. You have to excuse me for that. Okay. Here. So, look at this. You guys see this? Do I have a pen? Let's use this pen. This right here is 1. No, that's not what I want. I want a pen. What is this? Okay, we'll go with Zoom. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. See, that's why he calls us 4 hours. 5, 6. Right here is a half. This line that he has here, 6.5, he's called Mincha Gedolah. that moment on the schedule is called Mincha Gedolah. You're with me? So this is going to be this whole thing right here is going to be 7, but that's 6.5. Now this is going to be 8, 9, 10. Now this is going to be 11, and this will be 12. Sorry. What is it? Oh, you got to be kidding me. Okay. I hit something by accident. Sorry, what was your question? So that's what we're going to do right now. The Gemara right now is going to have this discussion. Okay, guys, I really don't like this. I don't have a text box. All right. So this is number 12. Okay, sorry. Where is my pen? This one. Yes. Why are you? Okay, so now what we're saying is that there's 2 times of mincha. Now they didn't put the mincha ketana time. You guys help me. The Gemara just defined for us what time mincha ketana is. I want to include that in my chart. He didn't include it for some reason. Let's put it in orange. Okay, so read the words of the Gemara. What does it say? The time of mincha ketana is 9.5 hours. Okay, look at the screen. I know there's some coloring on it, but it's fine. Ezohi mincha gedolah mishesh shaot umechza ulamala. Mincha gedolah is from 6.5 hours. Ve'ezohi mincha ketana mitesha shaot umechza ulamala, from 9.5 and on. So now 9.5. Really, I should take this time. No. Let's erase this. And now halfway through, is that a half? I don't know, but it's fine. From 9.5 is called a little bit of script. Mincha ketana. You see that? Okay. So here's how it works. There's an offering that's brought in the afternoon. That's called the korban mincha. Now there's 2 times. There's the mincha gedolah and there's mincha ketana. Now, what this is really talking about, the way Rabbi Berachot loves saying this, is that the afternoon offering in the Torah is called something. Ben ha'arbaim. Ben ha'arbaim. Oh, shalom alachem. Get something to eat. The food is here. Ben ha'arbaim means, how would you define ben ha'arbaim? What does ben mean? Between? What's arbaim? No, that's arba'im. Ben ha'arbaim. There's an ayin. Between the evenings. Very good. So Erev is like an evening. Between the evenings, the way Rabbi Chaim always says this is that there's the sun, but it rises in the east and then goes halfway through. It's rising. At midday, it starts setting, right? It starts going down. It starts its process of setting, and then at Shkia it actually sets. So Ben Ha'arbaim is between these points, the afternoon, the second half of the day, between the time that it begins setting and it ends setting. But we're talking about in the afternoon, while the sun is still up. Not twilight, that's after sunset. I'm talking about from midday and on. This is just the terminology of why the afternoon is called Ben Ha'arbaim. So now this time period... This is exactly right. Correct. Chatzot would be exactly at 6 hours, end of the 6th hour. But Mincha is a half hour after that. Mincha Gedolah is a half hour after Chatzot. We didn't get into the halachot of these times. So far, all we're doing is we're defining the time on the calendar. On the day, Mincha Gedolah is referring to the moment. It would be the same as if I said, what is noon? And I would tell you 12 p.m. And you're going to say, so can I pray Mincha there? I'm not talking about praying Mincha there right now. I'm defining a term of what noon is. I'm defining a term of what Mincha Gedolah is. Mincha Gedolah is 6.5 hours in the day. And now I'm defining what time Mincha Ketana is. It's 9.5 hours into the day, or going reverse, it's 2.5 hours before the end of the day. Okay? Good? Good. Now it happens to be, these times are because of the times of Mincha. But for now, we're just defining. Now, what does the word palag mean? Half is correct. Palga means half. So now... Okay, so now you're going to start to understand that plag ha-mincha means the halfway mark between the Ben Ha'arbaim. Plag HaMincha is the halfway mark between Mincha and Erev. Now, what should be your question? If I say Plag HaMincha is the halfway mark between Mincha and Erev, what should be your question? Which Mincha? Which Mincha are you taking the plag of? If you're taking the plag of Mincha Gidola, when would your plag be? See some nice math. Less than 3 hours, 2.25. Very good. 2.25 before sunset. No. Hold on a second. Plag means half. Halfway mark between Mincha and Shekiah. Okay? So how do I know what is the halfway mark between thing? All right. I can't do much without Excel. What is it? You guys say, should I leave this writing here? Okay, we'll leave it here. Let's go from a perfect day that starts at 6 and ends at 6. What time is midday? Okay. Sunrise, sunset, 6 a.m., 6 p.m. Midday is 12 what? 12 noon. Now, Mincha Gedola, in this case, not 6:30 p.m., 12:30 p.m. Mincha Ketana, 3:30 p.m. I'm trusting you guys. I'm not doing the math. Okay, 3:30 p.m. Now, sunset is at 6. So let me actually bring this guy down here. Wait, what just happened? I'm going to bring this guy down. Are you guys okay with me getting rid of this writing? Yeah. Because it's getting in my way. Annotations, clear all. Okay, so now I want to know Plag HaMincha, which is halfway between Mincha and sunset. So, who said Mincha Ketana? Rama wants to know which Mincha. That's the question. So, if you go, it doesn't make sense. If you go for Mincha Gedola, I need to take 5.5 hours and cut it in half. 5 cut in half is 2.5. With another thing is 2 hours and 45 minutes. So 2 hours and 45 minutes before 6 p.m. is 3:15. 2.25.
It's 5.5 hours divided by 2, so 2.45. 2.25.
5.5 hours divided by 2.
45. 2 hours and 45.
2.5 would be 5. Right? But it's 5.5 hours because it's 6.5 hours into the day. Look, 12:30 to 6 is 5.5 hours.
5 and 2.5, 5 and 45.
2.75, which gives me what time? 3:15. Hold on, Andy. Andy, we're gonna get this. Andy, 12 to 6 is how long? 6 hours, halfway? Just 3 o'clock. 12 to 6, halfway is 3 o'clock. Okay. Now I'm gonna give you a half hour less. So I need 15 minutes later. What's 15 minutes after 3 o'clock? 3:15. That's the time. Right? And that essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking 5.5 divided by 2, which is 2.75. 2 hours and 45 minutes. 2 hours and 45 minutes before 6 o'clock is 3:15. What if I go by Mincha Ketana? 4:45. This one is a little bit easier. Are you with me? Someone said no.
Yeah.
What is it? You're voting? Okay. All right. Let's get back to the Gemara. These are two time periods. What is Mincha Gedolah? What is Mincha Ketana? We said. Ibayalahu. The Gemara asks a question on this line of the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda, Plaga Mincha Kama Kamar, or Plaga Mincha Achrona Kamar. Is Rabbi Yehuda talking about halfway mark starting from the first Mincha Gedolah? Or is Rabbi Yehuda talking about the halfway mark starting from the second Mincha Ketana? This is what Rama said. Which question? That's the question. Which mincha? That's the question of the Gemara. So Tashma, let's see what the Braita says. The Tanya, Braita tells us explicitly the answer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Plag mincha achrona amru. The Plag mincha that we're talking about, the Braita tells us, is the later one, which is mincha kitana. This is how Nikki voted. He voted like this. It's the later one. Vehi, and it defines for us, Achat esrei shaot chaser avia. 11 hours minus a quarter, which means a quarter to the 11th hour, which means
An hour and a quarter before
an hour and a quarter before the 12th hour. And if you're going from a day to 6 to 6, which means 4:45. Okay? You guys know that this is not the real time, but I'm going from a day that's 6 to 6. If you had to go from a day that's 5 to 7, you have to adjust the calculations. We practice this. But and we'll do some tests. We'll do some tests.
This is the easiest example.
6 to 6 is the easiest example. There are two times defining for mincha. No. So this again, this has to do with korbanot, because for korbanot, there's certain things that they would only do in the afternoon, and there's certain things that they would do for in the mincha gedolah and mincha ketana. Here, I think they say it. Say it again.
You just say mincha at the earlier time, and then you covered it at the later time, no?
Correct. Oh.
There's even the earlier time. What's the point of it?
Okay, so Josh has an excellent question, and you gotta apply some knowledge to get the answer. Okay, so Josh is saying, Rabbi Yehuda is telling you the latest time for mincha. And if he's telling you the latest time for mincha, he tells us Plaga mincha, we're not sure. Is he talking about 3:15 or is he talking about 4:45? So Josh is saying, let's be safe. Let's play it safe. Go by Plaga mincha, starting from mincha gedolah, and so this way pray mincha by 3:15, right? So you end up playing it safe. What happens if you do that though? Could be too early? No, because the earliest time for mincha we're going to see is mincha gedolah. The earliest time you can pray mincha is at 12:30. Okay, so that's a good point. But you're being strict for no reason, because now you're getting an hour and a quarter when we could just try to understand what his opinion is. So that's a good answer. We're being strict for, we don't necessarily have to be strict. What's another answer?
Sunset is much earlier in the year. You can do it back to back, but now if you start widening that gap and saying you gotta take it out earlier, you're not having to create a gap.
Okay, so Andy, your answer has the answer, but you're not saying the answer. Okay, but you have the answer there. You have the answer there. Okay, here's the answer. The answer is we're going to see what is the time of Arvit. Do you remember? Well, how did the Mishnah define what's the time of Arvit? Tefillat Erev. It does not say all day. It does not say all night. Ein la keva means it has no set time. How did the Vilna Gaon explain this? Vilna Gaon explained this, that the time of Arvit is the time where you can't pray mincha or shacharit. It's after mincha time, before shacharit time. That's what ein la keva means. It means it doesn't have its own time. It's just when there's an absence of shacharit and mincha time, that's the time for Arvit. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that you start Arvit at Plaga Mincha. If you're done with mincha at Plaga Mincha, then you can start Arvit at Plaga Mincha, which means if we're going to be strict and end mincha at 3:15, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could actually start Arvit at 3:15. And then you're being lenient. So that being strict on one hand is actually being lenient on the other hand. So that's why it's important to say, okay, fine. If you want to tell me between 3:15 and 4:45, don't pray anything, that's possible. But for now, the Gemara doesn't say I want to be strict, because the Gemara says I know what he holds. We have a Braita from him telling us exactly what he holds. He holds mincha ketana, plag mincha ketana, which means the half of the later one. Okay, guys, let's try to finish this Gemara. So now the Gemara is going to say, even though Ilan didn't like this proof, even though Ilan didn't like the proof of the Braita that brings every single prayer, the times correspond to the times of the Korbanot, and not just that. When there's a machloket about the prayer, it's corresponding to the very same machloket with the Korbanot, okay? And even the times that you're coming up to have to do with the Korbanot. The Gemara is saying, look, that's a very strong proof that tefillot are keneged Korbanot. Your first proof about the avot, it's one thing. But this is a very strong word. The times, the whole thing is smelling of korbanot. So the Gemara says, Nema tevet tiyuf to the Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina. Let us say this is a rejection for that first opinion that says tefillot keneged avot tiknu. It's very clear it has to do with korbanot. So the Gemara is going to say, no, he has a defense. Amar lacha Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina is going to say, Leolam emalach. I'll defend myself and tell you, tefillot avot tiknu. The fathers did establish it. Abraham established the prayer of Shacharit. Yitzchak established the prayer of Mincha. Yaakov established the prayer of Arvit. Ve'asmechinu Rabbanan HaKorbanot. Now the rabbis came and they put Zmanim to it. And this is exactly what Ilan said. The rabbis came and they said the Avot established time prayers, but they didn't tell us what time. What time should we do? Let's model what we have in the Beit HaMikdash for the Zmanim. And that's what Rabbi Yosef says. So don't say it's a disproof for me. I agree. The times here have to do with the times there. That's because the rabbis picked the time, the korbanot for the times. But the prayers were established for the avot. The ilot emachi. The Gemara says, and you have to do that. Rabbi Yosef needs to acknowledge korbanot. Why does Rabbi Yosef need to acknowledge korbanot? He can't say that it has nothing to do with korbanot. Why? Because of what Shlomo said here. Because the ilot emachi, because if you don't say this, Tefilat Musaf, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina, Mantakna. Where is Musaf coming from? Right? Because Abraham did Mincha, Shacharit, Yitzchak, Mincha, Yaakov, Arvit, but we have a Musaf prayer. It happens to be on Shabbat, we have an extra Korban in the Beit HaMikdash called Korban Musaf. And on Rosh Chodesh, we have an extra Korban called Korban Musaf. And on Yom Tov, we have an extra Korban Musaf. Which father is that corresponding to? So even Rabbi Yosef has to acknowledge that there is a correspondence to korbanot, but he says that, but the fathers were the ones who set the precedent. They were the ones who done the three. The rabbis then came and said, so now we're going to tie to this. And since we have an extra korban, we'll add an extra tefillah because we've already begun thinking about korbanot. The tefillot avot tiknum ve'asbechinu rabbanan korbanot. The rabbis came and they established the times connected to korbanot. Apparently, according to the Zohar, I haven't gotten there. Rama, I think, has. I haven't gotten there yet. But apparently, according to the Zohar, Tefillah Musaf is corresponding to Yosef HaSadiq. So maybe you could find out a little bit more about this. I don't know. I'm not there yet, like I said. But there are some that say this. But look, it's very clear that the Tefillot are Keneged Korbanot. It's also very clear that Tefillot are Keneged Avot. So you see the Gemara, it's almost like this is a poetic way that the Gemara says, oh, machloket, it's not this, it's not that. The Gemara answers like, both are correct. Both elements are correct. And there's no machloket. There's no, they're not arguing with each other. They're not mutually exclusive. We have the precedent from our role models, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And then the rabbis came and buttoned up the details. And when they buttoned up the details and they said, Shacharit is this time, Mincha is this time, they follow the details of the korbanot.
So it's both.
So it's both. So it's not mutually exclusive. Both are true. Now there is one thing that there's a pasuk that's quoted that says Unshalema farim sefatenu. This pasuk means, and now that we don't have korbanot anymore, the only thing that we have left is tefillot. People very often, and I mentioned this last week, they misunderstand this to mean that when we had korbanot, we weren't praying. Right? Have you ever heard this question? Many people ask me this question. They say, Rabbi, if the tefillot are coming because of the korbanot, that means in the Beit HaMikdash they weren't praying. We're only doing because there's no korbanot, right? The answer from our Gemara is no. Tefillot were established by Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Tefillah is a mitzvah from the Torah. But the rabbis came and they established at times connected the korbanot. And all that means is that when we don't have korbanot, all we have left is tefillah. But that doesn't mean when we had korbanot, we didn't have tefillah. We had tefillah. What was it? There's a proof. I read it today. The proof that I heard today from Rav Shlomo Eliashiv. What's the proof? This is the proof. The Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit talks about. This is his proof. It's very nice. His proof from the Gemara, from the Mishnah, really, that they were praying at the times of the Beit HaMikdash. You ready? What is the time that we start Maskirin Gevrot Geshamim, that we start mentioning Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGeshem? When do we start mentioning it? Sukkot. Very good. Shemini Atzeret. Why don't we do it on the first day of Sukkot? We don't want it to rain. We don't want to mention the rain when it's not the right time to rain. Okay? Then the Gemara says, fine. So that's Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGeshem. When do you start asking for rain, then you say Barech Aleinu or V'ten Talo Matal Bracha. December 5th is for Bavel. The Gemara in Ta'anit tells us for Bavel. What about in Israel? No, that's no November. We're talking about the Gemara. Cheshvan. Yes. What? The 7th of Cheshvan. Is that what you said? Just take credit for it. Yeah. The 7th of Cheshvan. Why? Why that day? Oh, Mr. Nikki Israel Hakimi, tell me. You're the OG? Take pride of it. This is Masechet Ta'anit. We learned about it. Because it gives them time to get home from visiting Israel. Because what would happen is for the Regalim, they would all go to Israel to bring Korbanot, and when they were there, they would have to leave. And when they would go home, it would start raining on them on the way back. So we said, let everyone give everyone 2 weeks to get home from the Beit HaMikdash, and then start saying Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGeshem. So says Rav Eliashiv, you see that they were going to the Beit HaMikdash when they were saying V'ten Talo Matal Bracha, and you didn't want it to rain on these people. If there's a Beit HaMikdash, they weren't praying. No, you see, they were praying. Of course, tefillah existed, and if they were to say V'ten Talo Matal Bracha as they're traveling, they're going to get rained on. Even though there's a Beit HaMikdash, you know how we know there's a Beit HaMikdash? Because they just came from the Beit HaMikdash. They went for the Shalosh Regalim. Still, they prayed. There was always prayer. There was prayer even in the times of the Beit HaMikdash. So the next time, I'm telling you, it's going to happen at some point. Someone's going to say the question of, during the times of the Beit HaMikdash, they weren't praying because prayer is only corresponding to it's coming in the place of korbanot. So what you could answer is no. Prayers, the times were established to correspond to the korbanot. But they were praying always. They were praying from the times of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And even in the times of Beit HaMikdash, tefillah existed. Okay? Yeah, no, they had more work. Our Mr. Rani Aziz. Oh, Rani, I forgot. We have another Kohen. Oh, we have a Zimun of Kohanim here tonight. And they all are Aziz. They're all Aziz. Baruch Hashem. You're Azizi, but they're all Aziz. Baruch Hashem. Ezra Hashem. Oh, Kohani. The tallest one. I'm like looking right through it. I don't know. There's other Kohens here. We have 4 Kohanim here. So these guys are taking care of your work, Rama. Don't worry. You don't have that much work to do. They're taking care of everything for you. Okay. Azak Baruch, we just Be'ezrat Hashem again. Thank you all for coming. I really meant what I said, how you guys are like a family, and Be'ezrat Hashem, may we continue to learn many, many Masechdot together. Azak Baruch.